The world was nothing but a blur of haziness, a fog that had been his reality for the past year. He sat alone in his apartment, the dim glow from a lamp barely illuminating the room, casting long shadows on the peeling wallpaper. The air was thick with the stench of stale alcohol and regret. It was an odor that had long since ceased to bother him, a constant companion in his lonely existence. The only other presence in the room was a half-empty bottle of whiskey, standing like a sentinel on the worn-out table. He stared at the bottle, feeling a strong pull towards it. He knew that he should not succumb to its temptation, but something within him wanted to take a sip, a taste of oblivion that might allow him to forget all his worries for just a few moments. His hand moved forward, almost without conscious thought, and before he knew it, he had taken up the bottle and swigged heavily. His name was John. Once a man with dreams and aspirations, now he was a mere shell, hollowed out by the relentless march of life and the venomous kiss of the bottle. John was an alcoholic, not the kind that drank to celebrate or to drown the sorrows of a bad day. No, he drank to exist, to feel normal. In his world, alcohol was not an option but a necessity, a cruel elixir that kept the demons of reality at bay. John desired to stop, yearned for it with every fiber of his being. He longed for the days when he was not a slave to the bottle, when he was free to feel, to live, to be. Yet every attempt to break free from this self-imposed prison was met with a violent backlash. His body would rebel, aching and trembling, screaming for the one thing he was desperately trying to avoid. It was a vicious cycle, a dance with the devil he could not seem to escape. The taste of whiskey had long since become bitter in his mouth, a stark reminder of his predicament. But the bitterness was better than the nothingness that awaited him beyond the bottle. It was the nothingness that scared him the most, a vast, unending void that threatened to consume him. It was a constant reminder of the futility of existence, a perspective that had become his reality. Everything around him seemed insignificant, meaningless. The world outside his window carried on, oblivious of his struggle. People laughed, cried, lived, and died. The sun rose and set, the seasons changed, and yet nothing really mattered. It was all a grand play, a cosmic joke, and he was but a puppet in its hands. The bottle was his refuge, his sanctuary from the crushing weight of existence. It was a paradox, a simultaneous creator and destroyer. It was his lifeline, and yet the very thing that was pulling him under. John lifted the bottle to his lips, the amber liquid reflecting the bleakness in his eyes. He took a swig, the liquid burning its way down his throat, setting his insides on fire. But it was a fire he welcomed, a sensation that reminded him he was still alive. As the world around him descended into oblivion, he braced himself for another battle, another day. Not to live, but to exist. Not to be happy, but to be. In his world of nothingness, alcohol was the only reality. A reality he despised yet couldn't let go of. A reality that was slowly killing him, one sip at a time. John awoke abruptly, a harsh gasp escaping his parched lips as he was rudely yanked back from the realm of oblivion. His body was drenched in a cold sweat, his heart pounding against his ribcage like a wild beast trying to break free. The room spun around him, a nauseating carousel of faded colors and distorted shapes. The withdrawal had begun. His hands trembled violently, a macabre dance that was all too familiar. The shaking was the first sign, the herald of the torment that was to follow. A gnawing emptiness clawed at his insides, a void that only the bottle could fill. He reached for the half-empty whiskey bottle, his clammy fingers barely wrapping around its cold glass body. His hands shook with such intensity that he could hardly steady the bottle. The first attempt to pour himself a drink ended disastrously, his trembling hands betraying him as the amber liquid splashed onto the table, staining the worn wood. The smell of the alcohol, usually his lifeline, was suddenly overwhelming, a suffocating wave that hit him like a punch to the gut. The bile rose in his throat, a bitter taste that left him retching. He lurched to the side, vomiting violently onto the threadbare rug. His body convulsed, trying to purge itself of the poison he had forced upon it. With a groan, he wiped his mouth on the back of his sleeve and tried again. This time, he managed to pour a small amount into the glass, his hands shaking like leaves in a violent storm. Half of it spilled onto the table, but he didn't care. He needed this. He needed it to survive. With a trembling hand, he lifted the glass to his lips, the sharp smell of the whiskey making his stomach churn. But he forced it down, the liquid scorching his throat, a painful reminder of his existence. Almost immediately, he felt the familiar warmth spread through his body, a soothing balm to his ragged nerves. The shaking subsided, his heartbeat slowed, and the room ceased its nauseating spin. The relief was so overwhelming that he couldn't hold back the tears that welled up in his eyes. John cried. He cried for the man he had once been, for the man he had become, and for the man he could never be. He cried with relief, his tears a stark contrast to the fiery burn of the whiskey. He poured himself another drink, his hands no longer shaking. The second drink went down easier, the warmth intensifying, his body relaxing. He was once again a prisoner to the bottle, a captive in his own body. But for now, he was free from the clutches of withdrawal, free from the nothingness that threatened to consume him. The relief was fleeting, but it was enough, for now. He sat back, the glass cradled in his hands, the tears still streaming down his face. His sobs were the only sound in the room, a lonely symphony of despair and relief.